Let me take you back to my consecration in 2018. Okay. I was made a bishop on the 7th of April 2018. The Bishop of CHINHOYI. That's one, I didn't expect it. It was not part of my my dreams. It was not one of my dreams to become a bishop. There were certain things I wanted, and perhaps you see them now. I've always wanted to be a formator, to train young men in the seminary and in a religious house. Perhaps I felt it very early, maybe because my first formator, Father Raymond Capito, was called Raymond, and perhaps it rang into me that maybe this is the work that I want to do, or perhaps he did it so well that I began to say, this is what I should be doing, taking young men through the ropes. The Archbishop was one of my formators too, an exceptional formator. In the early days in Chimani, in my first year, and for much of my seminary years. And I became convinced that what this church lacked were formators. And I really wanted to make a contribution, not because I was an exceptional formator, but I believed that I could make a contribution. And I really wanted maybe to make sure that the church gets good priests after the heart of Jesus. And I thought I could help. And so that is what I wanted to be. And God gave it to me. When I was very early on in my formation, I was asked to accompany young people. And later, after my ordination as a priest, I was working in formation and accompanying young people who are now priests to this day. So I was happy there. Secondly, I wanted to become a Redemptorist missioner. A Redemptorist missioner is one who goes and preaches missions. You are preaching a mission for conversion, for people to turn back to God, for people to get to know God for the first time. And that was one work calling that I would not want to exchange for anything. To this day, my heart still aches for not having now time enough to do that. Okay, I preach every Sunday, I preach on big occasions, but to be part of a mission team, to go out and pitch a tent in the middle of nowhere and preach beside a pub like we were doing in Rua in the early years of my priesthood is amazing. We were literally the Catholic street preachers. And that is what I've always wanted and will always desire to go back to. Now, 2017, a message is sent to the nunciature, and the nuncio, Archbishop Merrick, calls for me. And I'm going there thinking, well, this is almost Christmas, and I'm embarrassed to see him. I said, at the time, would give each other gifts, around with the fellow priests and even the nuncio, because the nuncio was working constantly in St. Gerard's where I was working. Well, he would come to assist here and there. So I knew him reasonably well. And you would never accept an envelope as a gift, but you would always accept a bottle of wine. And so every Christmas we would send him a bottle of wine. But this particular Christmas, I hadn't sent him a bottle of wine. And when I was told he wanted to see me, I said, probably he wants to remind me about that bottle that hasn't come. And the first thing that I did when I got to sit down with his secretary prior to seeing him was to apologize for not having given him a bottle of wine for Christmas. And the secretary says, oh, that's okay, don't worry about that. He has just been to Malaysia, he bought you a gift and he would like to give you a gift. And I was saying, a gift from the nuncio? I had never received a gift from the nuncio. And so I was quite keen to see what sort of gift he was giving me. And a few seconds later, a shirt was given me. Small though it was, I'm sure he had been given it by somebody else. And this is a Christmas present for you from the nuncio. And I said, do thank the nuncio. I will bring him a bottle of wine sometime before Christmas. And after that, the secretary says to me, no, but he would like to have a word with you just for a few minutes. And before long, he comes in, sits down, and he begins to ask me about the weather. And that got me interested, You call me to the nunciature to ask me about the weather and to ask me about how I'm doing and how things are in the parish. It was almost like he's preparing me for something. And I was wondering what. Perhaps because I was the Redemptor Superior, he wanted to raise a complaint. So then he says, we have news from the Holy Father. And I was, all of a sudden I became very, very interested. Because I said, what's the news from the Holy Father? Do we have a new Pope? Do we have, and he says, the news from the Holy Father is that you have been appointed the new Bishop of Chinhoyi Diocese. I just was in shock because it was not something that I was praying for. It was something that I always saw as something for certain people, especially because I was a religious. I didn't see myself being appointed a bishop of any diocese, especially Chinhoyi. I thought, well, being a diocese which from the beginning up until then was being run by the Jesuits, they would choose another Jesuit, and that was the end of it. So nobody thought somebody else other than a Jesuit would come into that office. And nobody, at least me, I didn't even consider myself a candidate. But the news came and the news shocked me. I actually said to the nuncio at the time that I think they made a mistake. I'm just a preacher and I'm just a formator and I'm just a lecturer, because by then I was a formator at Alfonso's house forming Redemptorist students, and at the same time, I'd been a formator forming Redemptorist students. I was now a regional superior of the Redemptorists, and I was a mission preacher, and I was teaching in the seminaries at St. Augustine, at Shishawasha at the time, and I was at a loss, except to say, I think you've chosen the wrong guy. I don't belong to the league of those who are called to that office. I'm just a preacher, and I'm a poor administrator. I wouldn't be able to run the accounts of the diocese and to run so many administrative chores. And he says, the Holy Father has chosen you because you are a pastoral worker. And you will learn how to be an administrator or administrative duties as you go. Or you can appoint people who are able to do that. So congratulations. I just couldn't accept it. I said, I can't accept it until I've spoken to my superior. He says, at this point you can't. This is a moment where it's about you and the Holy Father. It was very difficult for me to accept it, because I just felt that these were too big a pair of shoes for me. But as Redemptorists, when you look at the Redemptorist Constitution, it is defined as a congregation of pontifical right. In other words, it's a congregation of priests and brothers who are totally obedient to the Holy Father. In other words, we are ready to be sent where we are asked. So I was cornered because I was reminded of all that you are a congregation of pontifical right. You signed yourself to become a Redemptorist, and by that very fact, you are a servant of the church, and you are open to do what you are asked. So, in the end, we went to the chapel to thank God, and I was asked now to reflect and pray about it for a day, and the next day to come and write a letter of gratitude to the Holy Father, and that's how it all began. That was a moment of change, a serious change in my life. From being a priest who just loved to be a Redemptorist and preach and teach in the seminary, to somebody now who was being asked to be in charge of a diocese, it was just too big for me. I was accepting it because this is what we do as Redemptorists. We are obedient to the Holy Father. But certainly not because I felt able and worthy. I just felt is what God is asking of this poor priest, this worm, as Scripture would as Jesus would say in his prayer on the cross, from Psalm 22, I'm just a worm. So it was a moment of a radical change. Now, years later, I'm ordained, I'm consecrated a bishop, and I start working in CHINHOYI. Now, years later, I'm beginning to think, we need to change this, we need to build this, we need to go on and do that, we need to finish this. We have journeyed. We are now a family. We've gotten to know each other with the priests. We have had our struggles. We have had our differences. Now it's getting better. We are beginning to know each other's strengths and weaknesses. We are beginning to work together towards a common goal. And I feel maybe now, we have established a relationship. As soon as that feeling comes over, you become suspicious that something is about to happen. So we were at the ad limina visit in Rome. An ad limina visit is a time where the bishops of a country go and meet the Holy Father. And you have a face-to-face meeting about Zimbabwe, about pastoral challenges in Zimbabwe, and you have discussions about the church and about pastoral questions, theological questions. We had a wonderful time with Pope Francis, and I have pictures to show that in fact we met him. It was a beautiful moment. After that, we left the papal residence, and I must hasten to add that as we were going in to meet the Holy Father, guess who I met? There's an old famous actor, the guy who was acting in the Rambo movies. I forget his name, but he is famously known as Rambo. I also got a picture with him. That was a very interesting moment. He was coming out from meeting the Holy Father, and so he gladly accepted to have a photo with me. And off I went into the streets of Rome. Buy a few things, maybe, rosaries and books and so on. And strangely, in the middle of, all those chores, my phone rings. And I don't know the guy who is on the other side. And he says, "Are you Bishop Raymond?" I said, "Yes." "You are in Rome, right?" I said, "Yes." He says, "Well, I am phoning, I'm Father so-and-so from the Congregation of Evangelization of Peoples, which is the congregation that is in charge of Africa and the missionary activity in Africa, in the third world anyway. The Cardinal Tagle would like to meet you tomorrow at 11. Can you come? We know you very well, we have seen a lot of your applications and would like to meet you." I was over the moon because I thought they had considered my applications for money. for the projects that I had applied, and they wanted maybe a further conversation about it and maybe to consider supporting some of them. I couldn't wait. I even then went on to tell Bishop Rudolph Nyandoro, who I was with at the time. I said, I think I'm making money here for all the projects. You know, God has finally had me in the eternal city of Rome. So the next day we went together. We delayed a bit. We're in the train and it took time to come out, and then I got another phone call. Where are you? And now this was with a bit of force. They were a bit disappointed that a bishop could delay a cardinal. So I said, I'm just by your offices, but I can't see where you really are. He says, well, if you're coming out of the train station, just come straight ahead. You will see our building. Please hurry, you're already behind time. So I said, I'm going to miss my chance to get money for the projects. You know, I think the poor would slap me for having, missed this big opportunity for them. So eventually we rush there, we get in, and as we go up the elevator, the door opens. The door of the elevator opens, and I am rushed. For the Sekuru Nyando or Sekuru Rudolph is asked to go somewhere else. And I wait a minute. What is this about? And I'm taken into the cardinal's meeting place, maybe boardroom. It can't be, well, not really a boardroom. It's like, plenty of sofas. And I made to sit there. The cardinal was not yet in, and people start coming. Some archbishops and bishops and some priests, and there's a team. And finally, the cardinal appears, Cardinal Tagle from the Philippines, who is in charge of Propaganda Fide, and everybody stands. It's now formal. And I'm beginning to say, what is going on? Is this about money or something else? And again, they start asking about the weather, about my work in Africa, about our meeting with the Holy Father, about my stay in Rome, about the food in Rome, how I'm enjoying the place. And whether I had studied in Rome, I said, yes, just reconnecting with my past and so on. That moment, he says, we've got news from the Holy Father. I knew that line very well. The Holy Father has appointed you the new bishop or the next bishop of the Diocese of MASVINGO. I was a bit disappointed with the news because of what we were doing in CHINHOYI. And not because of MASVINGO per se. MASVINGO is my home diocese. MASVINGO holds this very special place. But we're doing a lot. And I wanted to see these projects through. I wanted to continue in CHINHOYI, small though it may be considered in terms of the Catholic population. But the Cardinal said, so what do you think? The Holy Father is asking you. I didn't waste time arguing against going to MASVINGO. I simply said, if the Holy Father is asking this of me, I will go. Just that I had so many things that I was doing, and I was hoping that I could continue and finish and start new things. I was at home, comfortable and very happy and grateful for being in CHINHOYI. So he says, oh, thank you. Thank you for accepting. Let's talk about the day of announcement and they proposed the 15th of May. And the 15th of May is a feast in the Catholic Church of Our Lady of Sorrows. So when the day was proposed, I could see people giggling. You know, good news is being delivered on the feast of Our Lady of Sorrows. So that was a lighter moment then. I left a bit disappointed, and I couldn't tell anyone. Just like in 2018, after being told of your appointment, you cannot tell anyone until it is announced. And I had to wait from the 21st of, in 2018, from the 21st of the 21st of December, right up to the 29th when it was announced. And that time kills you, because you've got life-changing news and you can't tell anybody. Now again, I've been given the same news, and I can't tell anybody. And I have to wait until the Holy Father announces it. So I'm looking at Bishop Nyandore as I was saying, he says, what happened? I said, he was asking about projects. This is sometimes bishops lie. I said he was asking about projects, and and he wanted to inquire further about how they could possibly consider our applications. And he looks at me and says, is that so? I said, yes. He says, is there anything else you're hiding from me? I said, no. And the next day he was coming back, and then I came back a few days later. I think I got back on the Thursday, and on the Friday the announcement was made. So on the 15th of September 2023, I was appointed the bishop of, the announcement of my appointment was made, that I had become the Bishop of MASVINGO. What did it mean for me? Well, it meant having to leave the place I knew, I had gotten to know so well. For the 5-6 years I'd been there, the 6 years I'd been there. And sadness also, because I was going to lose the closeness of many families, the friends of mine, the farmers who are now Mr. Mugari, the doctors, Dr. Chitambo, and so many others, Dr. Sefile. I said I make friends very easily. I had friends, a bucket full of friends, and lay people, young people, Sheuneso, and all these young fellows in CHINHOYI who I had gotten to know and to love. So it was sad to leave. But as you know, as St. Paul would say, I forget the past, and I now strive and rush and run towards the future. And that's what I did, was to say, well, this is my past, this is what we have done with the Holy Spirit and with the Lord, this is where God wanted it to end, and this is my new calling. When I left CHINHOYI in December of 2023, for my for my reception here in MASVINGO on the 9th of December, the installation on the 9th of December, leaving CHINHOYI, I wept. Just to let you know, I cry very easily. I cry for free. If you want some tears, contact me. I can give you a bucket full of them. It's a family trait. We cry. So I wept as I was driving out. It was like leaving a place so familiar, the people I had loved. Strangely, when I arrived here, I was looking forward to be here and to start something new. It was like I never cried. This was it. Get on with it. I've been here for 2 years now, going now to 3 years. It's been beautiful. It's been absolutely magical. I know my people, they're very expressive. They want to show that they love you. And sometimes because I've grown up in Harare, you tend to get, there's a Zuri embarrassment. You don't want to look them in the eye, but the Karangas want to look you in the eye and to dance and celebrate you, looking at you, engaged. And it's been good to get back to that, because I grew up with people with that kind of expressiveness. People would want to celebrate you in your face and would want you to join them in celebrating life. So it's been a beautiful thing, and I've made friends already, families, priests, lay people, religious. It's been a beautiful 3 years. And it's part of my priesthood as well. You move to another part of the diocese. Some priests I knew so well, some I needed to get to know, especially those who had just been ordained. Others used to write to me about things and spiritual direction and so on. But others I really needed to know from scratch. And that has happened. It's still ongoing, but perhaps the 3 years has been a good introduction to each other. Now that I'm back in the diocese full time, I look forward to it. It's going to be a new experience of being full time here. But it's been a beautiful 3 years that has enriched my experience, not only as a bishop but as a priest. How people in different areas, provinces, live their Catholic faith, and how they love, especially you as their shepherd, and how they want to journey with you. Synodality did not begin with Pope Francis. Synodality is something that has always been part of our culture, especially here. They want to take you by the hand. They want to take you into their homes, into their lives. So it's been a beautiful synodal journey, which has added value to my 25 years of the priesthood. Mombasa.